can ask you this question, and that you're pretty good about taking yourself out of the equation. So, where do you assume in 2028 the country, the characteristics, the style of president, the style of leader? When we elect a new president, we usually reassess. We usually end up with a different character, if you will, a different type of person than the previous president, whether we like that president or not, right? From Bush to Clinton, it was sort of a bit out of touch versus touchy-feely, right? George W. Bush was restore honor and integrity. It was a little bit moralistic versus Clinton. Obama was Mr. Gray area, right? If Bush was everything in black and white. What do you suspect the nation's going to want in their president post-Trump?
It's interesting because I think it always becomes obvious that that's what they wanted after the fact.
I know, right? It is easier to look back. That's why historians have the easiest job in the world, right? They could keep a set looking backwards. Like I always joke, I can't wait. I hope I'm alive in 50 years. It's borderline. I trust your friends in Silicon Valley to keep us alive longer. But in 50 years, I can't wait to see what historians say about the era you and I are living in right now.
It really, it will be fascinating. I mean, look, I think the country, in my view, is going to be exhausted and embarrassed. Exhausted just by the constant sensationalism, the anger, the division, the polarization, and embarrassed that the country that my parents came to, that Kennedy was talking about, that's not America, that there's so much that we've lost. And I think that that they're going to look, in my view, for someone substantive, hopeful, unifying.
You think sort of less celebrity? I mean, because, one of the ideas some Democrats say, Stephen A. Smith or Mark Cuban, right? They're looking for Trump light, right? Looking for a liberal Trump. And I'm very skeptical of that. I just think, I don't think we want to continue down this, celebrity path. That's what we end up doing, but maybe I'm missing something. You're out there talking to people. I'm skeptical of
it too. I mean, I think Stephen A. would be a great voice. I mean, he's obviously a blunt truth teller, but I'm really skeptical of that too. I think that they would want, my sense is they'll want someone who actually understands how they're going to rebuild institutions, how they're going to rebuild the country substantive. And I don't think they're going to want someone that copies Trump in style. This is why I have my pet peeve is every Democratic politician going on and cursing to show
You've gone 30 minutes. You've not dropped the F-bomb. Most Democrats, and it's so funny you say that. You're like, how do I connect? Well, F you. I've connected now. I'm a working class guy. You're like, really?
I think it's sort of a pandering to folks. Like, it reminds me of people who come to Indian American events dressed in Indian clothes. Like, no, you don't have to do that. You just need to know enough.
Showing up was enough.
Showing up was enough. And this thing that we elect our next door neighbor president, come on, most people don't do that. They want someone who they think doesn't look down on them, who they can go to, like Trump. And if you go to a football game with Trump, you would think that, okay, he's going to be fun to talk to. But do you think the American people really think that Donald Trump or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton is their next door neighbor? No, Trump says he's a genius about the economy. He says he really knows what he's doing. He knows what he's going to build well. And so partly, in my view, on this cursing thing, not that, of course, I went to Eagles games at the vet.
Obviously, you weren't raised by nuns. I know that.
I was raised by nuns, but I don't think that's what people want. The same style. I think they're going to say, well, isn't there a way to be more hopeful, more inspiring about the country, to raise us to like a better level? And I don't think they're going to want the same shouting on the left than they did on the right. Maybe I'll be totally wrong. I mean, maybe they will want that. I think that will be sad for the country if that's what it ends up being. I will say the Democrats, the one thing we're going to want on the Democratic side is someone energetic who's going to say, well, one thing Trump had is a vitality and energy, a sense that he was going to get stuff done for that agenda. And whoever the next person is on our side, whatever style they have, I don't think it's going to be enough to say, okay, we're going to take a break from politics and I want the president out of my life.
I know. I remember I remember Michael Bennett when he was running for president. He said, when I'm elected president, you could go 3 weeks without hearing from me. I promise. And I thought, yes, right. But what you're saying is actually that's actually not a good thing either, right? I mean, what's the lesson learned from the Biden failure of communication?
I think it said there wasn't communication, or wasn't
Right.
communication enough. Biden was still in the old playbook of, you do a press release, you speak at the State of the Union, you
Hmm.
go on Meet the Press, and that's enough. And it wasn't being out there telling the story day to day, putting out content, uh, being present, energetic,
Hmm.
creating a sense of vitality and motion and doing things. And whether the country wants that, I certainly think Democrats are going to want that. Democrats are going to want someone they think is energetic, who gets the
Hmm.
communication, who is going to be out there and energetic. And what I would hope is that energy is then channeled in a way that this is energy for the
Hmm.
country, not energy for just the party. Look, one of the things Kamala Harris said that I thought was good is when she said, "Okay, I'm going to appoint a Republican into the cabinet or try to bring the country together." It never got much traction, because then she said, "I'm not going to do anything different." That was one thing she articulated that was different right there. But my sense is that there's, the parts of the Harris campaign that were right, because we forget that there was a time she was doing things quite well, was when it was, we're going to turn the page, we're going to bring the country together, it's going to be a more hopeful era for America. It turned out that people said, "Oh, it's joy and you're not getting to be angered." That's fine. But there was a sense we wanted to move forward. She just couldn't finish the sale. I think that sense is going to be deeper by 2028.
Mm. Do you there's there's a movement out there. In fact, the guy who helped recruit Dan Osborne to the Senate in Nebraska, you said you were just out in Nebraska, and he is, he views some of his success as not being a Democrat, right?
Yeah.
Pledging himself as an independent. And there are people that were very supportive of him are actually going, hey, that's the right road to go down in Iowa, and that's the right road to go down in Kansas, and maybe that's the right road to go down in Florida. What do you say? I mean, I look at my home state of Florida, the state Senate Democratic leader left the party.
Wow.
He's the
Um,
elected leader, right? He left the party to go independent, saying the Democratic brand was
yeah.
dead. And yet there is half of the state not liking the Republican governance of the state, right?
Right.
What's your prescription in these places that doesn't like their leadership? Iowa is a good example. Nebraska is a good example, but they've lost total trust in the Democratic Party, so they don't look to the Democrats as an alternative. You know, there's a movement of independence here that the Democrats have to win over in order to be a majority party. How do you get them back?
Well, look, if people want to run as an independent like Dan Osborne and then ultimately caucus with Democrats, I think you have to tailor to what's going to be effective in a community. And that doesn't mean that I'm not encouraging people to run as Democrats. I think we have to talk about all the things the Democrats first have
Hmm.
done, from getting worker safety to the worker wage to Medicare, Medicaid, to getting Social Security. In a sense, the Trump is helping us remind people of what was good about government.
Mm.
Even Ronald Reagan, he tried to overturn the Great Society. Lyndon Johnson, he didn't try to overturn the New Deal. I mean, Trump is literally
Hmm.
in some places trying to or at least Musk going after the New Deal. So I think we have to, as a party, remind people about the core, that we fought for working
Hmm.
class Americans, middle class Americans, economic security. We industrialized the country.
Yeah.
But then we need to have a vision going forward that we care about people. And I think people thought we got caught up in niche issues, and caught up in doing things for groups. I don't think
Hmm.
it's wrong for Democrats to say America is a great country. We want America to be strong. The first thing we're going to care about is how
Hmm.
America succeeds and is wealthy and strong and prosperous in the 21st
Yeah.
century. And I just think we, even though a lot of Democrats believe that, it became that, oh, they're more sidetracked with things that affect a few percent and with different
Right.
groups, than having this narrative that FDR or John F. Kennedy or Barack Obama had, which was, it was about America.